All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Appreciate you joining us on a Friday after Christmas. Kevin Sanderson from My Amazon Guy here with me today, and we were just talking about the gifts that we got for our kids and the magic of Christmas and all that fun stuff. So, hope everybody out there had an awesome Christmas, and if not, I hope you have an awesome new year at least and enjoy this time of year as much as possible. I always love Christmas and really get into it. Do you get into Christmas a lot, Kevin, as well? Or
I do. And I think it's kind of been more through the eyes of the kids. Although,
yeah, for
we were
sure.
talking about before we hit the live button, as the kids start getting older, it is, and they're still kids, but it loses some of its luster that it had, when they were a little younger. So it's interesting. Let's just say it's evolving in the Sanderson household.
Yeah, well, my kid is, of course, not quite one yet, so it's really, it definitely changed it for sure, but it's a little bit more for us than her still yet because she doesn't really
Right. You got
understand
a
what's
couple more
going
years of
on.
that.
But had a lot of fun and taught her how to tear the paper a little bit, and
Oh,
she likes her presents, so she's playing with them and having a lot of fun. So
nice.
it was a good Christmas.
Good.
But all right, let's go ahead and dive into the news here. Anybody out there watching, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about the news, throw them in the comments and we'll try to bring them into the show and discuss them as well. But this first news story is quite interesting, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, Amazon presses Chinese sellers over Temu pricing. Amazon is pressuring Chinese sellers to stop offering lower prices on Temu, a competing e-commerce platform, to maintain its competitive edge. Sellers who fail to comply risk being removed from the coveted buy box, which significantly impacts sales visibility on Amazon. This intensifies the battle between Amazon and budget platforms like Temu, which are gaining popularity with U.S. shoppers. Sellers are now caught between pricing demands from both platforms, struggling to balance profitability and compliance. So for me, I like this. I love to hate this, or however you want to say it, right? Because I don't like that they do this practice, because I think it's price fixing
Mm-hmm.
to look at your prices on Walmart or Shopify or wherever, and then suppress your Amazon listing if you're a different price there, because fees vary and everything like that.
Right.
I think that's a form of price fixing. But if they're going to do it on all these other platforms and primarily to US sellers on those platforms, then I think they should also do it for sellers on Temu, Shine, and other platforms and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And part of me wonders, like, some of these Chinese sellers on Amazon, their prices are so low. How can they offer it even less on Temu if it's the same product? So I wonder, how much of all this is being subsidized by whether it's the Chinese government or, platforms like Temu or something. So how are they able to offer all these low prices is where I kind of wonder. And so Amazon now is starting to, scratch their own head and like, how is this happening? I thought we had the best deals. So how could they have even lower deals? So it's interesting. And, the Amazon haul thing, I have yet to hear anyone talk about Amazon haul since, like, I think it was one of the stories that we talked about when maybe I was on a previous episode of Amazon Seller School News. I haven't heard much about it in the last month. Like, and you think you'd hear about it more in the holidays. Heard
That's
zero talk
definitely
about it.
true. A little bit, but not a lot. And that would be one of my questions, is if the same or very similar product from the same seller is listed on Amazon Haul and Amazon.com, are they going to suppress Amazon.com if Haul is cheaper?
Right. Exactly. There's a lot of weird dynamics. I think Haul was kind of a Hail Mary pass of like, okay, let's try to eat into some of their market share at Temu. I think Amazon is scared. I think they've shown time and time again with whether it be Jet.com, Walmart, Etsy, eBay, any other sort of kind of marketplace that's come out over the last few years, they end up eating their lunch because it's kind of a little bit more of an equal playing field.
Yeah.
Equal playing field of the field itself is, equal, but it's like, the University of Georgia would be like Amazon, and maybe Jet.com was like the local high school team. And so the playing field itself was equal, but Amazon had such a monopoly on the systems and the talent and everything that like they just dominated.
Yeah.
Temu, I don't think they know how to play yet. So it's like, we'll create our own thing. We'll suppress the pricing. So I think this is going to be interesting to see where this goes. I'm glad Amazon's playing a little more hardball with this, because if they just let Temu do its thing, Temu eventually will, I don't want to use the term like parasite or anything like that, because I don't mean to say it like that, but it's like they will eat them from inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Temu is, Amazon lost a lot of money for quite a while, billions of dollars they lost over the course of many years.
Yeah.
Temu is doing the same thing at a much more rapid pace, but they're also pushing those losses onto the sellers, because last week we had that story about how Temu or sellers on Temu were revolting and removing some of their products, because once Temu has your products, you don't necessarily control the price they sell them at. They're going to sell it at whatever price they want. And if it's a loss to you, you just don't get any money. And
really?
So there were sellers removing products from Temu because that's what they were doing. They were getting the products, selling them at a loss, and then just not paying the seller anything because there was no profit.
That's crazy. And is Temu, this is the part I don't know, is Temu have like their own fulfillment, or is the seller fulfilling it themselves on Temu?
Yeah, so it was all direct from China. So I believe they had warehouses in China where the product would go, and then they would ship it over. Now they're opening up warehouses in the US. And then also last week or the week before, we talked about family warehouses where people are setting up warehouses in their house, in their basement, in their garage, and fulfilling orders for Temu and such from there. So they're working on their warehouses here in the US, and that's growing, I think, because of the closing of the de minimis loophole is forcing them to do that, to get the goods over here and shipping them, because having 2-3 weeks lead time isn't an advantage anymore if you can't offer it super cheap by avoiding those tariffs.
Right. It'll be interesting to see where those tariffs go, but that's another discussion.
Yeah. So let's see. I had a couple highlights here that I thought were interesting. So Amazon began tracking product prices on Temu and removed sellers from the featured offer program if their Amazon prices were higher. So that we already talked about. But previously, Amazon excluded Temu, citing concerns over counterfeit products or questionable sellers on the platform. So they weren't including Temu, in the list with Walmart, eBay, Shopify, and places like that, because they're like, well, they're all counterfeit products, so we can't count them as similar products. So that brings up an interesting question. Let's say I'm a US seller and I make this toy and they make a copy of it and throw it up on Temu. Are they is my buy box going to get suppressed because someone else copied my product and threw it up on the Temu platform?
Yeah, that's a good point. Or if Temu lowers your price just to get more sales, because they apparently don't care. They set their own prices. Like, are you now suppressed on Amazon? So I could see how that would put Temu sellers at a disadvantage, because if they're making decent money on Amazon, what is the motivation to be on Temu? Like, especially if
Mhm.
Temu's like undercutting them on its own.
Yeah. Well, and that's going to be the thing. I think Temu or Timu, however you want to say it, we're both
Right.
saying it differently, but that's okay. I'll have to look that up one of these days and get the actual pronunciation from someone in China. But yeah, it's one of those things where Amazon, like you said, is trying to push out the competition, and it's becoming, there's a lawsuit right now over them suppressing the buy box with Walmart, Shopify, and places like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Amazon's argument is that no, we're not, price fixing or anything like that because we're just trying to keep prices low. Well, in this case, it's obvious they're trying to keep prices higher
Mm-hmm.
so that they can be competitive. So they're kind of like stepping on their own argument of the current lawsuit. Now they also say, well, we're not stopping them from selling. We're just suppressing the buy box and they don't
Which
show
is
up in
such
searches as
nonsense.
much and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like,
We're just
okay,
making it almost impossible for the average buyer to try to add it to cart.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's going to add more fuel to that fire as well. But at the same time, it's going to make it very difficult for Temu to compete, especially, here in what, like 24 days, Trump is going to being coming into office, his
Mm-hmm.
inauguration. And he's already talked about clamping down on China with tariffs and things like that. So I think it's going to get very hard for Temu and Shine and all those companies that are fulfilling directly from China.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where things go after that. So it's probably one of those things that this with tariffs and everything else and the de minimis rule, maybe all that makes it like we were the long term viability of Temu,
Mm-hmm.
Tiamo, Tiamo, whatever it is probably going to be going by the wayside here soon.
Yeah, and TikTok Shop, of course, as well.
True.
They're scheduled to be banned on the 19th unless the Supreme Court steps in and gives some kind of delay or something like that. I could definitely see them giving, like a 30-day delay, 60-day delay, something like that. But we'll
Yeah.
see. They may not. They may just say, yeah, you're done. And it's kind of risky, I think, on TikTok's side to kind of just be, it kind of feels like they're just putting all their eggs in the basket of, the USA is not going to actually do this, and they're not looking for people to buy them and such, because even if they said right now, okay, Amazon's going to buy us,
Mm-hmm.
can you really recreate everything onto US platforms in 27 days or whatever it is?
Right.
It's going to be a big hoe to get that done. Big row, I should say, is what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah. Big road to hoe or whatever the term is.
Yeah, however you say that saying.
Yeah. However you say that phrase. Yeah. It'll be interesting. Oddly enough, at Christmas, my nephew was telling me, who's like 18, that his understanding of TikTok was that whenever this takes effect, like TikTok doesn't just go away. It's just no longer available in the app stores, like the App Store and
Mhm.
Play Store and things like that. And
Yep,
so just like they'll just lose traction over time. So if you have it on your phone, it's not going to go away necessarily.
correct.
That could just be speculation. I have no idea. So I don't say that with any level of authority other than an 18-year-old told me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Do you remember the one platform? There was a social media platform that started gaining a lot of popularity. And then because it leaned Republican, the app stores banned it.
Oh, I
And
remember that.
still
Yes.
have it on your phone, because I had it on my phone for quite a long time, and it worked for a while until then Amazon stepped in and like banned their account or something like that, or their
I know
domain went
exactly what you're
blocked.
talking about. I remember that. It wasn't Truth Social because that's That's
No,
still
it was
there.
something else. I can't remember now,
Yeah, it was something,
unfortunately,
but
but it could be something similar unless, the federal government steps in and tells the domain registers that keep the IP addresses of servers on the internet. It's like a catalog. If
mhm.
they tell them to remove those, then they could get taken down unless you use a VPN to connect in China or some other place, not in
Mm,
the United States.
that would be
So,
interesting. That
but
would be like the
whether they would
reverse
go that far or
broker.
not, it's hard to say. But yeah, you would have it on your phone. You just wouldn't be able to get updates or anything like that unless you did what's called like side loading or going to an unverified software update platform, which there are several different ones out there that you can use. You just get warnings and stuff when you try to
Right.
download stuff.
Most people aren't going to do that. Most people just go with
No.
whatever um, the easiest road to go down is. And so if the easy road is just go to the app store, whatever, download it, whatever, and that's
Mhm.
not available. Some people like love to go around the system anyway, but I think most people just do whatever's easiest. And so
Yep.
if
Yep.
it becomes hard to go to TikTok, they'll just go to Instagram.
Yeah, for sure. I thought this was interesting that to avoid further issues, sellers were changing their images on Temu listings so they don't match Amazon to make it harder to detect. So that's kind of interesting, I thought.
Yeah.
And then, as we mentioned earlier, there's rumors of Amazon pressuring sellers to prioritize its platform, gain traction after Anchor, a well-known power bank and chargers brand, removed its products from Temu last week. So last week, Anchor removed all their products from Temu,
Mm,
um, potentially in response to this because they're a huge Amazon brand, and that's really where they got their traction from.
yeah.
So, going to be interesting to watch. I mean, like I said, I hate this practice of Amazon suppressing buy boxes from other platforms. I don't think it is legal. I think it's price fixing. But if they're going to do it, at least it's fair to do it with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to break the rules, at least be consistent.
Yes, exactly. All right, let's go ahead and jump on to the next article here and scroll up to the top. All right. So e-commerce wars, how the US is losing the battle. So this is kind of a continuation of the previous article a little bit. In e-commerce wars, Xing Detlefsen, I probably butchered his name, outlines how US small businesses face growing challenges as foreign sellers, particularly from China, dominate platforms like Amazon. These sellers often exploit regulatory loopholes, avoid taxes, and engage in unfair practices like manipulating reviews and undercutting prices, leaving Amazon entrepreneurs or American entrepreneurs at a disadvantage. The article highlights the economic impact of these practices, estimating a 4.75 billion annual tax revenue loss and significant harm to U.S. jobs and innovation. He proposes policy reforms such as withholding taxes from foreign sellers, closing loopholes, and strengthening intellectual property protections to create a fairer marketplace for U.S. sellers. So essentially, the article is going over a lot of what we just talked about in the loopholes that foreign sellers have that US sellers do not have. And there was a really cool graph that I'm going to scroll down to here real quick. So this is an example of the costs that a US seller has: the income taxes, regulatory fees, insurance, import duties and tariffs, and your cost of goods versus the costs that a foreign seller has. And they really can avoid all of those things in red there that a US seller cannot avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially that is why a foreign seller can significantly undercut an American or US based seller on Amazon or any platform, Walmart, wherever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Although I think getting around import duties and tariffs is going away.
Yeah.
Because that was only if it was like, single shipments. Insurance, like if you're doing FBA, you still have to have insurance.
Yeah.
Um,
Amazon has started requiring that more for sellers. So you have to upload your insurance. So that would mean that I don't know how that works though for a non-US based company and what that insurance would look like if they're having to buy insurance from a US based company or if they're just getting some cheap insurance in China and using that, or how that works for foreign. Do you have any idea on that?
so there's an address. It's like something or other Gold Street, Gould, in Sheridan, Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of them that are probably registered as Wyoming um, companies, because Wyoming has a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? Uh, Privacy ability.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
think a lot of them are probably registered as whatever companies in whatever states. And there's a lot of U.S. sellers that, for whatever reason, register in Wyoming. But I have a feeling there's probably a lot of them that, oh, is that the hurdle we need to do? Okay, we'll fill out some form and register with whatever,
Yeah.
state we need to register with. Whether or not they're doing it the right way, I don't know. But because one thing I've learned, there's a lot of good people in China that I think will play by the rules, but there's a lot of gamesmanship. Like they don't view the U.S. way of doing things as anything they necessarily have to follow.
Yeah.
In a lot
Well,
of
and to be
cases.
fair, US companies do this as well.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
You open up a foreign company so that you don't have nexus in the US to avoid income taxes and different
Right.
regulatory fees and stuff. So this isn't only China doing this.
Right.
US companies do this as well, and lots of other countries as well. But what it really hurts is anybody, the smaller sellers. And you could consider a smaller seller anybody making, or selling 10, 20, 30, $50 million a year. Anybody who's not big enough to have foreign entities and move money around and
Right.
play that game. Anybody just trying to sell on Amazon and follow the rules is at a significant disadvantage versus people who are taking advantage of the system.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple things that I had highlighted here. So he talks about essentially a parallel economy that operates largely outside of the regulatory and tax frameworks that govern domestic businesses, which is what we've been talking about. If you're a US based seller, a small one especially, you have to abide by all the rules and regulations. Where if you're outside the US, in a lot of ways, you can get around those regulations. Here's the section that I was looking for. So today's foreign sellers, particularly those based in China, operate under a fundamentally different model that exploits gaps in our regulatory framework. These sellers identify hot products on Amazon, rapidly manufacture copies, or source the same product through local Chinese factories, often circumventing proper customs declarations and tariff payments, ship directly to Amazon's warehouses, manipulate marketplace metrics through fake reviews and targeted attacks on legitimate sellers, and frequently avoid paying US taxes altogether. They can do all of these things because there's no way to hold them legally accountable, as at most they operate under a shell company in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
So that Wyoming company that you were talking about.
Right.
And they've got some interesting examples here. So Molson Hart was talking about one of his products where basically this is just kind of a price cutting thing, where the Chinese competitor who knocked off his product just kept lowering the price to basically break even for the two of them, and made the product no longer profitable. But there's some other interesting ones down here. So this is an example of fake reviews going on people's products. And if you just look at these reviews, they're like 1 star, suitable, organic, 1 star, useful,
Right.
pure, 1 star, perfect, organic. It's like, some of those reviews, like, this is the greatest product of all time, one
Right. It's
star.
useful and pure. 1 star.
Yes. So they definitely play that game, the black hat game of leaving negative reviews against people. This was another interesting one that Cameron posted. So they sold this kid safe glue on Amazon, and a Chinese company copied their packaging and everything, just made a different trademark essentially. But they didn't use kid safe glue. They just put regular super glue in
Hmm.
the container and sold it on Amazon. So I can imagine there's a lot of kids with their fingers stuck together that had to go to the doctor,
Ugh.
and remove the super glue.
Vapor
And
harmful.
so there's no way that he says that this passes CPSC regulations, which is for sure true. But how do you hold those companies liable for that? If I got this glue for my kid and they got hurt from it, there's nobody that I can sue. I can't like hold a Chinese-based company accountable
True.
for selling me a harmful product, unfortunately. And that's one of the reason when I'm buying product for my kid, I'm always looking at where is the company based that's making these products. I don't necessarily care if they're manufactured in the US, although I'd prefer they were. But if at least the company that owns the company is based in the US, then if
Hmm.
something goes wrong, I have someone to sue or hold accountable for that product harming my kid or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point because it's hard to hold foreign entities accountable, especially if there's not necessarily a great judicial relationship between the two countries.
Yep.
Um, so it kind of creates the situation where Amazon becomes the judge, jury, and executioner, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Amazon as time goes on to figure out situations like this. Now, I know Amazon does have a lot of things behind the scenes where they, require a lot more compliance. Amazon, I think, used to be a lot more libertarian of just throw the product up, and if it messes up, we'll figure it out later.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've become a lot more uh, officious would be the wrong word, proactive
Yeah.
in some of the requirements, because I think there's also been a lot of pressure put on them. Like they're not
Yep.
like this little mom and pop um, website anymore.
Yeah.
They're the
Yeah.
behemoth.
Well, there was the lawsuit that was won that essentially said that Amazon is responsible for helping with recalls of products that are sold
Mm.
on their platform.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
they can no longer just say, "Well, that's on the company that sold it. We didn't do anything."
Yeah, we
They
just
actually
provided
have to
we're just a
help
marketplace.
facilitate the return of these products or the
Hmm.
disposal of the products or whatever the case may be. So, the regulations are definitely coming down on them, and they're going to get harder on it. Unfortunately, a lot of things skate by, and then a lot of things that shouldn't have gotten cracked down on get cracked down on,
True.
and it's very difficult to get them back up.
Yeah, there does sometimes end up being this like pendulum that swings a little too hard the wrong way. So
Yeah, so this
you don't
one
want to be hit with
was
that.
infringing on supplements as well. Now that would be a scary thing. I would never buy anything that I ingest from anything that's not made in the
Correct.
US. Well, Europe, maybe in some parts of Europe, certain countries, but definitely not from China. I'd be very scared to use that.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's another one. I want to get down to some of the recommendations that he made for possible ways to fix these. So this first one here, require online marketplaces to withhold income tax for foreign entities that sell on those marketplaces. So that would definitely be interesting to see happen. I'm not sure how the legalities of that would work exactly, but I guess they could do it just like Amazon is withholding the sales tax. But how do you know what the profit is? Because you're supposed to pay income taxes on profit, right? So I don't
Yeah,
know how
that's an
exactly you would
interesting
play
one.
that
And
out.
a lot of countries have treaties back and forth. Now, I don't know what the treaty is between the US and China, but like for example, like if you sell on Amazon in Canada, generally
Mhm.
speaking, you're going to have to figure out the sales tax, GST they call it, in Canada. Either you work on it or Amazon does it. One of the two. It's being figured out.
Yep.
But your profits go to your home country. So if you're in the US and you sell in Canada, the profit that goes towards the profits that you make
Mhm.
um, in the for your US tax return. Now, China, I don't know what it is back and forth between China and the US. So that's an interesting one. And how would you remedy that? I don't know. And I
Yeah.
don't know that it's a question anyone's ever really asked. I'm
Yeah,
sure
it'd
people have
be
asked it.
very difficult. I kind of look at it like California as an
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm.
So I don't live in California. I pay my taxes in Florida and then to the federal government. But California requires me to submit my information to them so that they can tax me also in California based on the profit of the business. So Amazon is kind of doing something like this, right? I'm a foreign entity to California. The
Mm-hmm.
only relationship I have with California is that I send product into Amazon and they hold it in California warehouses, yet I have to pay income taxes in California. Now, to me, that is the definition of taxation without representation because I have no
Right.
vote for politicians in California.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see something like that with China, where this income tax is withheld, and then at the end of the year they have to submit, their financials to determine how much they should pay in income taxes. But how would you ever confirm that it's real? Every Chinese company would just say, yeah, we made $0 on the
Right.
sale of those products, and to get all their money back. So it'd be hard to gauge that for sure. So I don't know if that's one that is practical or not.
Yeah, I don't know how you would police that unless they just said like a percentage of revenue across the
Yep.
board,
Yeah.
which of
That's what
course
it'd
is
have to
not the
be.
way it
You'd
works.
have to just be like 5% is, coming off the top, or 1% or 2% or whatever as your
Mm-hmm.
income tax for the US so that it's predictable. Everybody knows what it is. And it'd almost be like a tariff in a way. But it would be post sale or at the time of sale instead of at the time of importing,
Right.
which that I could see working for sure. Second one, immediately put a stop to the de minimis loophole, which we talked about, which they're already working on closing that, which is good. The third one here, which I really like, force foreign entities to put up liability bonds to sell in the US. So this one would be really good because we talked about that it's impossible to hold a company in China liable if one of their products harms me or my kid or something like that. But if they have a liability bond in the United States, then you can come after and sue them, and there's
Mm.
money sitting there to handle those lawsuits. Or I suppose a bond would be you'd pay some kind of company whatever percentage, and it'd be like an insurance policy, I guess.
Yeah.
So that I could see being very beneficial for sure. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. So you're setting up something. Now, one of the things I think this article is kind of missing is I've talked to factories in China and Chinese sellers, and when you talk to them, there is more of a curiosity and a fascination with how to make things work, like on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking a very, not offensive, but like on the offense stance. Everything we're talking here is very protection oriented, which
True.
I think you kind of have to, maybe just based on where we are, but like, how do we take more of the mindset of how do we just beat them?
Yeah, that is very good point, Kevin, for sure. I like that. And actually, if I go back to this graph up here, in a perfect world, I think we would eliminate the U.S. income tax, eliminate the
I'm all
regulatory
for
fees.
that.
The insurance, I think, is good. And if China eliminated all duties and tariffs for our products, eliminate them here as well. But I'm on board with eliminating the income tax. Trump actually talked about that. That would be amazing.
We'll see if that happens.
Yeah. Eliminate the income tax and replace it with tariffs is what his proposal was. But yeah, I'm for that as well. Unfortunately, I'm a libertarian when it comes to that kind of stuff, but unfortunately I've never seen that kind of stuff happen. Maybe we'll be it's
We'll
always
see.
goes the other way, more regulations, more taxes, more burden. Maybe we'll see something different here under Trump and we'll start cutting that stuff and it just levels the playing field. I would definitely prefer that for sure.
We shall see.
But even with that, if we eliminated the income tax, eliminated the regulatory burdens, I still think this one, putting up liability bonds, would be good to force them to be liable for products if they harmed consumers.
Yeah, there should be some way that they have to like be accountable for their products, just like a U.S. company would be.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to have a way to hold them accountable, because then they are more likely to ensure their products are not going to harm someone. If you have no risk, and if your products harm someone, you just close that account and that entity and open up a new one and start selling under a different account. If that's what you're able to do, then you have no really good reason to not sell harmful products other than your own morals and stuff like that. And you would hope everyone would have that, but not everyone does, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that goes for worldwide, not just talking about China.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly. And, not everybody in America has a clean nose.
Yeah, definitely. Tariffs, which we already talked about. Reciprocate laws. This is one thing that Trump is going to do for sure. That if U.S. companies can't sell its good in China, then China can't sell its goods in the U.S. and vice versa, wherever the case may be. I think that's a good thing. I'm all about free trade, but you can't have free trade if one side is heavily protectionist and blocking all your products. You got to do something to make everyone be free and fair. And by taking advantage of the strength of the U.S., I think you could do that. Audit the shell companies of foreign sellers, fast track intellectual property lawsuits, which I think would be good as well. Help with taking down fraudulent products and things to stop counterfeits as much as possible as well. All right. Any other thoughts on that? We can move on here.
No, I think this is a good discussion. That It's interesting because like if you go on Helium 10, you've got the Helium 10 Chrome extension up, and you're looking, it's got the flag of where the seller's from. Like it's on most niches, it's Chinese flags.
Yeah.
So China is eating our lunch when it comes to selling on the American marketplace. And so it would be nice to at least see an equal playing field. Like, you know, I'm the libertarian side of me as well is also like, you know what, as long as they got good products and, you know, it's an equal playing field on both sides, let people come in. Cause that also helps, you know, as a consumer, you know, you're going to get better prices, but you know, you don't want like junk that's going to like hurt someone. And not that all products are, but you know, you just want to know that there's at least that equal playing field.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the main thing. You don't want someone knocking off a good product and making it junk and then selling it for half the price and taking all the sales from the good product just because it's not an even playing field. So that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's preferably reducing our income tax, reducing our regulatory burdens, and getting China to do the same and reciprocate and just make it a level playing field. That's the main thing. All right. So let's jump on to this one. $5 million stuck at FBA without reason, a seller's frustration. An experienced Amazon seller with 8 years on the platform and 50 million in annual sales shares their ordeal after Amazon shut down their account, freezing $5 million worth of inventory. The suspension stemmed from an unverifiable supplier issue on a single ASIN, despite the seller providing invoices from brand owners and national wholesalers. The seller expresses frustration over Amazon's lack of verification efforts, such as failing to contact the supplier and the severe impact this has had on their business, loans, and family. This situation highlights the need for Amazon to apply more context and accountability when taking such drastic actions against long-term compliant sellers. Now, I'll say right off the top, I don't have any way to verify that this is 100% true, but I put it in the news because this isn't the first time that I've heard this. There's a lot of sellers that have had this similar situation happen. And I've also heard a lot of times that Amazon wants to verify suppliers and you give them all the paperwork and everything they want, and they never actually call the supplier to verify that if it's real, and they either don't bring the ASIN back up or they don't bring your account back up. They keep it suspended.
Yeah. We're definitely looking at one side of the story here. And I feel like there's still a lot of questions of like, okay, like what type of product was this? Like, is this, I doubt this is a wrist pad for your computer. Like this is probably something that's a little bit more highly regulated. There's probably more behind the scenes, but like I usually don't hear about Amazon taking this drastic of action, especially over one ASIN. It's usually the ASIN gets taken down or something like that. Like I feel like there's more to the story, which it might not be. This might be just like WTF is going on here. Whereas like a lot of other tech platforms will shoot first and figure it out later. Like if you've ever advertised on Facebook, you've probably been suspended multiple times because sometimes they just do that and figure it out later. Like I had a Facebook ad account suspended for using the word "you" in ad copy because at the time they were going down the road to think that that was aggressive to use the word "you" because they wanted it to be a safe platform, which I thought was really good. But I got it back. You know, like they figure these things out. Amazon is not quite that drastic from selling, knock on wood, over years. Like I'm curious, like what else happened here, and what is the one ASIN, because that's horrible. Like I hate to hear the story in general that this person has $5 million in inventory and all his loans and whatnot. But like, what is the reason? Like,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
sometimes I see these
So
stories in forums, and then in the replies, oh, you should talk to so and so. They helped me get my account back, and it's like people shilling for some sort of
yeah, yeah.
service.
Yeah. So what I've seen in the past with situations like this, and what Amazon is really cracking down on right now, is selling, basically fencing stolen products, selling stolen products.
Mm,
So we had a story last week, I believe it was as well, about a company where 3 truckloads of their product were stolen. And then they started popping up from third party sellers at half the price during Christmas.
mm,
And so it was just destroying their business because of this. Now, these third party sellers didn't necessarily know they were selling a stolen product,
right.
but they were buying from unverifiable sources. And so that's what Amazon is cracking down on, or trying to. Um, and so they've been taking down accounts. It very well could be for that little mouse pad there, if
Right.
Amazon thinks it's stolen, because they're taking that very seriously. But the problem is that, you're dealing with typically low level seller support when you submit these
Yeah.
plans of action, and they're not taking the time to actually confirm that you bought it from a legitimate supplier. Because, like I said, there was another story, and it had a lot more detail than this one, but the company submitted all the paperwork. Amazon said that they contacted the supplier and they couldn't verify the invoices. The seller contacted the supplier. The supplier said, no, Amazon never actually contacted them. So there's a lot of situations like that. A lot of times it's correct. I had a
Hmm.
coaching call with someone who bought these products on Telegram. Don't buy from your supplier on Telegram or WhatsApp or any of that. There's no legitimate supplier using those platforms. But he got his account taken down because he was legitimately probably selling stolen goods. He didn't think he was. He thought he was selling a legitimate
They
product.
seem so
He
nice.
was naive. I'm getting this $50 product for $3. This is awesome. Kind of
Yeah.
thing. So you just got to be careful with that kind of stuff for sure. And then, unfortunately, Amazon doesn't have the best seller support system to handle when they take down accounts incorrectly or ASINs incorrectly and things like that. And it can take a lot longer than it should.
Yeah. I do hope that they get this back. Just looking at this, saying it's all based on one ASIN unverifiable supplier, and maybe Amazon is worried about something with that particular product, or you
Yeah.
know is it an inauthentic claim, a counterfeit claim that they just didn't
Yeah.
mention.
That would be my guess. If they're trying to verify suppliers, they probably think it's a counterfeit product or a stolen product of some kind. Because
Got it.
otherwise, they typically don't try to verify suppliers. They usually just ask for an invoice,
Hmm.
and then accept it or reject it. But if they're specifically trying to verify the supplier, then it's probably they think it's stolen goods or something like that. Um,
Got it. Well, I hope this person gets their account back. That sounds awful. Um, especially if it's one particular thing. But uh, I know this is counter to, probably what you might think, Todd, but I think if you're going to sell other people's products, you got to make sure you have all your, you might agree with the statement. if you're going to sell other people's products that you're not the brand registered owner of, you need to make sure you
Mhm.
have every dot crossed, I heard I dotted, T crossed. Is that a
Yeah.
fair statement? Because it seems like reselling products has gotten harder over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we keep all of our invoices. I always make sure the suppliers that we buy from are legitimate. Before we're making purchases, I'm looking into them, checking their address, make sure it's an actual warehouse, check them out on the Better
Mm-hmm.
Business Bureau, check them out on the local state
Mm,
business registration. Give them a call on the phone, make sure
yeah.
somebody answers the phone and they sound like it's a business. If you're calling a distributor that claims to have all these products and you call them and they're like, hello, who's this?
Mm-hmm.
That's not how a business answers the phone typically. Now, occasionally you'll get some small mom and pop companies that will answer the phone like that and they're still legitimate. But there's lots of ways to verify them. You could even pay someone if you're really concerned or questioning a supplier. You could pay someone on TaskRabbit to go to the address that they give you, take photos,
Ah,
talk with
okay.
the people there, and report back to you about the operations of the company. Maybe even go get a tour of the place if they're able to.
Right, right. Like they have what looks like a legitimate warehouse. They
Hmm.
look like they have a receptionist. They have
Yep.
it looks like a real company.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So all those different things you can do to verify, which for the most part will keep you out of situations like this. But if you find yourself in it, having all that documentation, while it can still be a pain in the butt to deal with Amazon, usually you can get through it. Extreme cases like this, where they're not able to get it back up, is relatively rare, thankfully.
yeah.
But you got to know that it's kind of part of selling on Amazon. We can hope and pray that Amazon will get better seller support, but you still got to have all your ducks in the row, as they say, and make sure you're ready for this kind of thing, to submit all the paperwork and know the process of pushing Amazon seller support.
Hmm.
And don't keep trying to do it yourself. If they reject you a couple times, reach out to a company that specializes in dealing with Amazon. There's companies out there, like Riverbend
Hmm.
Consulting. Leslie's on here all the time. They can help you, and there's lots of other ones out there as well that can help you. So
My
don't just
Amazon
keep
guy.
doing it yourself. Even what's his name from Brandon from Data Dive, the owner of Data Dive, right? They got their account taken down for a couple weeks, I believe, and
Oh
they
wow.
hired a company that worked with them to get their account back up and running, and prove that they weren't doing anything wrong. So it can happen
This
to
is
the best
crazy.
of us. You just got to
Yeah.
be ready for it. And be willing to shell out some money. If you got to spend a few $1,000s for a company to help you, it's worth it, if you're able to get your account back up.
Well, I mean, this person is reporting that they're averaging $50 million a year in annual sales. You would
Yeah.
think they would be able to get the best possible, not just Amazon service, but like lawyer too.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, at $50 million in sale, you should have some of these companies on retainer, like a lawyer and a
Right.
company that knows how to work with Amazon, maybe even paying the $40,000-$50,000 a year for an Amazon rep that can help you.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that they are relatively good at, is when your account gets taken down or an ASIN gets taken down, they have better contacts inside the company, to get it back up and escalated to the proper team.
Right.
So yeah, just be careful out there. Amazon, selling on Amazon, you can make a lot of money, but it's also can be risky and frustrating sometimes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing I will say is, again, I hope this person gets their account back, but for the most part, I'm glad that stories like this are relatively rare.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think legitimate ones are relatively rare. I think a lot of people talk about their account getting taken down and they did nothing wrong. I think most of the time people are hiding what they actually did
yes.
wrong. They know what they did wrong, or they just don't think it was wrong, but Amazon does. But there are legitimate cases where, accounts get taken down for no fault of their own,
Right.
just Amazon going rogue. That does happen.
Yeah.
But you just got to be prepared for it and know that it's probably going to happen at some point if you're selling long enough,
Mm-hmm.
and have a process for taking care of it. All right, let's jump on to the next story here, which is just a short one, but I wanted to point it out for people. Create custom brand imagery in seconds with image generator. So Amazon's new AI powered image generator lets sellers create custom brand themed images in seconds. These images can be used across sponsored brands, sponsored display campaigns, brand stories, and posts to enhance product presentation and engagement. With over 40 themes available, sellers can design seasonal and year-round visuals and save them in their creative asset library for immediate use. So have you played around with this image generator at all,
No, and I find
Kevin?
it interesting that they have 0 upvotes and 5 downvotes. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's like a free tool.
Yeah, I mean, I played with it a little bit. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it actually saved the product that I played with.
Oh,
So let me try doing a search here and we'll see if we can create something. So I'll select that. I'm doing this on another screen here, just because it shows my account and everything. But we've got the new year coming up. So what I can do is I can select the product, and then I can select the theme and the aspect ratio. And now it's generating me images with that theme in mind. So you can select from a whole bunch of different themes. They've got 4th of July, autumn, back to school, beach, boho, cottage, deep forest. So this is something they created. Let's see if I can open this in a new tab here and show it to you all. That's not working very good. It looks like I got to save it here. So let me save it and open it. And to show you, this is an image that it created for me here. So I just picked this zesty paws. Oh, you can't see that. Shoot.
yeah, I still see your.
Let me share another screen here. Window and this one. There we go. So this is an image that the AI created for me. I'm not sure. I selected New Year's, so I'm not sure why it made a fish, or maybe it generated it on a different one. I'm not sure. But it's not too bad, the product that it created. I'll open up another one here. So that's another one here. I mean, that's pretty decent for a photo. Now, it doesn't look perfect. If you look right up here, it cut out some of the top of the product.
Right.
And it does look a little bit like it's floating, but still pretty cool. You could probably use that in a A plus content or something like that. To
It'd be funny if the A
generate
plus
or to use
AI declines it.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, this isn't your main photo. You're not going to use this in your main photo, right?
Right.
You're going to be using this in your A plus or in an ad or something like that.
Can you
I'm
add
just
text
gonna.
onto the images?
So you can add an image description, but no, there's nothing else that you can select. I'm just gonna take a screenshot of this And then I can share that with you as well so you can see that. Let's see. Let me stop sharing that and share this other window right there. So that's what the interface looks like. So you just select a product. You can add some description of the product and kind of what you want maybe the image to look like. And then you select a theme and then an aspect ratio, and it'll generate the images for you. And it works. It does the job, I guess. It's not fantastic, but all these AI tools are just gonna keep getting better.
Yeah.
So here's one of that I actually did for the New Year's. So the other one, I think, when I generated it, didn't have the New Year's, but this is what it created for New Year's. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing super awesome, but I think it's a tool that helps minimize the gap between the smaller basic seller and the more advanced sellers that have millions of dollars to play with.
Right.
You know, if you can't afford to have a graphic designer on staff and you want to create different graphics for different holidays and things like that, this gives you the ability to do that quickly and for free, and close that gap between the people who are making excellent listings and, you know, you creating, you know, a very good listing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it definitely would allow people to play around with, you know, different things to test it out. I don't know what use case you would have for like a random picture like this, other than maybe
Yeah.
to throw it in as, you know, like a quote unquote lifestyle image for A+ content or something like that. But it just like it's missing words.
Yeah. It doesn't
I
put
don't
any
know what
words
ad
on there.
format you would use that with.
Uh,
And the product itself is kind of small. I was actually playing with a couple for my own product, and it was like it's decent, but the product itself is kind of small relative to what else is going on.
Yeah, so I'm generating another one here, and I put in the image description, New Year with fireworks in the background with words Happy New Year. So let's see if it can actually create an image with the words. It does take a little bit of time. It's generating images, so it's not quite as fast as like Grok or Chat GPT, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool that it just pulls the image from the listing. So I found that it does not work with main images that have something else in it. Like first I grabbed an image that had a person holding the product, and it would not use that because it had a person in it.
Oh, gotcha.
So there's what it created. It did not put the words in there. So you'd have to manually add the words. So you could open up Canva and throw in there, you know, Happy New Year or something like that if you wanted to create New Year graphics. So yeah, it's interesting. Play with it. Not the end all be all, but kind of a cool little tool to create some quick images if you needed to, maybe for holidays and stuff like that.
One thing you can do, I just noticed playing around with this, you can move the product to a different spot on the
You can. How are you doing that?
I think I clicked edit image and then
Add or edit image. Okay. Product positioning and size.
yeah, product
Oh,
position
yes.
inside. So then you can move it around. Now
There
I
you
moved it
go.
around and then it's added like another product after I moved it. So it's like it's kind of weird. But to your point, like this is early on, the tools will get better. You know, there was an ad I saw for I think it was Coca-Cola, and I was watching it. I was like, this is 100% all AI driven.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think we're going to start seeing more and more AI obvious type ads and creatives, because if you can just keep testing a bunch of things, you can make, eventually AIs will figure out like, oh, okay, Todd likes the color red in ads and Kevin likes blue, so we're going to show
Yeah.
ads that are more friendly to Todd, and more friendly to Kevin.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's scary with AI actually with the video generation, because they can take a photo of you, and then someone else says words that you want that person to say,
Yeah.
and it can animate that photo and make them do different things and say words that they didn't say. So that part of it is very scary. It's going to make a lot of things easier and a lot of things, more difficult and scary, because, there's going to come a point where video will not be admissible in court, because you're not going to know if it's real video or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to see where all this goes, because like even right now, like if I go to my Facebook and I look in my news feed, and there's always these like weird images, sometimes like before and after it photos of like a house or some random thing. And you look at the comments, and most people have no idea that like at least one of the part of it is AI driven, or
Yep.
something like retro to the whatever time period. I'm like, people didn't have 6 fingers on their hand as a general rule, or whatever weird AI thing, or the steps would actually touch the side of the house or something like that. Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
always something like weird, but people don't understand it. And there's always one random person who's like, are we not going to point out the fact that this is AI driven? But everyone else in the comments is like, oh, that's great, or oh, remember those
Yeah.
days. And like,
Yeah.
this is fake.
Yeah. If you're not looking for it, it can definitely pass. But if you're looking for it right now, you can pick up on little things, like the hands don't look quite right, or something goes through something else,
Right.
or something like that. But that's gonna eventually go away, and you're
Oh,
not
that's
gonna
getting
be able to
better. I mean,
pick up
like,
on that kind of stuff.
yeah,
I mean,
the
the
AIs
finger
will get
things,
better.
they've mostly figured that out, for the hands things. There may become a time where I can do the news without actually sitting here. My AI bot
Right.
will be on screen, and everybody will think it's real. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll have uploaded all of my historical content into the AI, and it will just do the news for me.
Well, and the twist is that's what happened in this. We're not even really. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we're AI right now. We're not
Right.
really here. We're off on a beach somewhere, sipping pina coladas, and
Yep.
the AI is doing the news for us. But
One day. One day.
yeah, yeah, I don't know if that'll be good or bad. That
I
may
doubt that's going to
not be
happen
great.
anytime soon. I think AI is good at giving you ideas, but you have to steer it in the right direction. It's
Yeah.
basically a car
For now, but
for
five,
now,
10 years from now, that'll be a complete different ball game.
potentially.
There'll be artificial robots with AI that are essentially doing just about anything that you and I can do. And I'll take one of those to do all the housework. I mean, that would be
Mm-hmm.
a godsend to be able to do that. And then you can focus on things that you really want to do and are really important.
Yeah.
As long as they don't, get it in their head that they're going to take over and, take over our household, take over the country, all that
Yeah. We don't want
iRobot kind of stuff. We don't want that.
none of that. None of that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Kevin.
All right,
Well,
Todd.
this has been fun. I appreciate
Yes.
you coming on the
Thanks for
show,
having me.
and appreciate everybody out there watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and leave any comments that you have in the comments again, and I'll reply to them even after the show. So have an awesome new year. Hope you had an awesome Christmas as well. And we'll see you next year.
We'll see you next year.
Have an awesome one, everybody.